Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are stepping away from the usual tech trends and history lessons to talk about something that is, quite frankly, terrifying. We're talking about that specific moment of panic when you decide to stop hiding behind an app, stop hiding behind a textbook, and actually open your mouth to speak to a human being in a language you don't fully understand.
Pure, unadulterated terror.
Yeah.
It really is the moment of truth, isn't it?
It feels like a cliff. It really does. You've been comfortable in your room, getting the little green owl on the app to ding when you get an answer right. But now there's a real person staring at you.
On Zoom or across a coffee table.
Yeah. And your mind just goes silent.
It's the leap of faith.
Yeah.
That is the core concept we are unpacking today. And you're not alone in feeling this. We've got a fascinating source guide here from a community called Se Habla, which has been facilitating English-Spanish exchanges for years now.
Okay, so they've seen this happen a lot.
Oh, thousands of times. And they frame this transition not as a study session, but as a psychological threshold.
Yeah.
And there's actual science, behind why it feels so scary.
Oh, really? So it's not just me being awkward. I'm not just uniquely bad at this.
No, not at all.
Really?
It's not just you. Linguists, particularly Stephen Krashen, talk about something called the affective filter.
The affective filter. Okay, what's that?
Imagine a wall in your brain, the kind of screen. When your anxiety is high, when your cortisol is spiking because you're afraid of looking stupid, of making a mistake, that wall goes up.
Right.
And you literally cannot access the vocabulary you know. It's blocked. You could know 1,000 words on Duolingo, but if your affective filter's up because you're staring at a stranger on a call, you might as well know 0 words.
That explains the blank mind phenomenon. That's exactly what it feels like. An absolute void where you just freeze.
Exactly. And the source material we have today, it addresses this immediately. It says the primary obstacle isn't bad grammar. It's the silence. It's the void. The text puts it so brilliantly. It says, the challenge is finding things to say that don't require a PhD in linguistics.
Right. Because when you panic, you lose all your creativity. You forget how to be an interesting person.
You forget your own personality. You're just a machine trying to find the right word and failing.
So the mission of this deep dive, then, is to analyze what this guide calls a strategic toolkit. It's a set of conversational topics.
But it's more than that. We aren't just looking at a list of questions. We are looking at a mechanism, a strategy designed specifically to lower that affective filter so you can actually perform.
So you can be yourself, but in another language.
That's the goal. So we're going to break this guide down into 4 specific movements. The icebreakers, lifestyle, travel, and my personal favorite, the panic section. The panic section is vital. It's the escape hatch. We all need an emergency exit strategy.
We really do. And then after all that, we'll wrap up with what the source calls the rules of engagement.
Right, the structural constraints you need to put on the meeting to make sure it doesn't just, fall apart.
Which it can, very easily.
Very easily.
But let's start at the beginning, the most terrifying part. The source calls this the first 5 minutes.
Which are, without a doubt, the most dangerous 5 minutes of the entire interaction.
Why is that specific window so critical? I mean, is it just the normal awkwardness of meeting a stranger for the first time?
That's part of it, but it's really about the cognitive load. Think about what your brain is doing in that moment. You first jump onto a call, whether it's on Tandem or Zoom or you're meeting at a cafe. Your brain is working overtime. You're processing audio input, often through a bad microphone. You're trying to read facial cues. You are actively trying to regulate your own heart rate.
Oh yeah, the heart rate is a big one.
It is. So, with all that going on, you simply do not have the bandwidth, the mental energy to invent complex topics or debate philosophy. Your brain is already at 110% capacity.
So the strategy here is to be boring. Is that what you're saying?
In a way, yes. The strategy is safety. The questions provided in the source for this initial phase, things like, what is your name, or where do you live, they seem almost childishly trivial.
Right, you think, I practiced this in week 1 of my class, do I really need to do this?
Exactly, but linguistically, they serve a massive purpose. They anchor you in the present indicative tense.
Okay, let's pause on that for a second. Why does the tense matter so much in those first 5 minutes?
Because the present indicative is almost always the first thing you learned. It's the most fossilized or, solidified part of your memory in that new language.
Ah, I see.
If I ask you right out of the gate, what did you do last summer? Oh, your brain has to scramble. You have to access the preterite or the imperfect tense in Spanish. You have to conjugate irregularly. That requires active computation.
It's work.
It's a lot of work. But if I ask, where are you from? That is automatic retrieval. It's a reflex. You don't have to think about it.
It's a script. You're not building the sentence from scratch. You just have to press play on a recording you made in your head months ago.
Exactly. And scripts save energy. They're your best friend in these moments. So let's look at the specific prompts the source gives us for English and Spanish learners.
Okay.
First, what is your name? Which in Spanish is, of course, ¿Cómo te llamas?
Simple enough.
Second, where are you from? ¿De dónde eres? And third, where do you live? ¿Dónde vives?
You know, it's interesting that they separate where are you from and where do you live. That seems like a small detail.
It is a small detail, but it's a great nuance, and it reflects the modern world, especially for people doing these kinds of exchanges. Those are often different places.
That's true.
You might be from New York, but you're living in Madrid as a digital nomad. It gives you two distinct, simple facts to share without needing to tell a whole story yet. You are just laying bricks.
I am from X. I live in Y.
Boom. Boom. You're establishing a rhythm, a predictable pattern.
It's like hitting a tennis ball back and forth very, very gently. You aren't trying to score a point yet. You're just trying to verify that gravity still works and the ball actually bounces.
Precisely. That's a perfect analogy. You are proving to your own anxious brain, look, I am speaking Spanish. I am not dying. The sky hasn't fallen.
I am surviving.
You're surviving.
Yeah.
And that act of survival lowers the effective filter just a little bit.
Yeah.
But then the source pivots. After those factual questions, it suggests a question that moves us out of sort of the census data and into the psychology of the learner.
Okay, which one is that?
Why are you learning this language? So for a Spanish speaker, ¿por qué estás aprendiendo inglés? Or for an English speaker, ¿por qué estás aprendiendo español?
And the follow-up, right? How long have you been studying?
Yes. ¿Cuánto tiempo llevas estudiando?
Now, to me, why are you learning feels like a much harder question to answer than where do you live? I mean, it requires an opinion. It requires a because.
It does, but it taps into something really powerful called intrinsic motivation. When you talk about why you are doing something difficult, you light up a different part of your brain. It's not just data retrieval, it's about purpose. But more importantly, it builds empathy. Think about it. If I tell you, I am learning Spanish because I want to talk to my grandmother in her native language, or I am learning because I fell in love with the films of Almodovar, I am showing you my values.
Showing your vulnerability.
Exactly. I'm telling you what matters to me. And that simple act completely shifts the dynamic of the conversation.
How so?
It moves it from teacher-student or quiz test taker to fellow travelers.
I like that. Fellow travelers.
Because the person you are talking to, and it's so important to remember in a language exchange, they are in the same boat as you. They are learning English. They are struggling too.
Right.
Asking this question establishes that you are both being brave. You both have a reason. It equalizes the status in the room.
That's a crucial point. If you feel inferior, you won't speak well. If you feel like your partner is judging you, your affective filter is going to go through the roof.
100%.
Yeah.
But if you feel like an equal, like you're on the same team, you take risks. You're willing to try a new word. You're willing to make a mistake.
And the source mentions that this is happening in the context of Se Habla, which is a global community. So that shared context is already there.
That's right. You already have that in common. You are both members of the same tribe, trying to solve the same puzzle. You aren't being judged by an outsider. You are being welcomed by a fellow member.
Okay, so we've survived the first 5 minutes. We're breathing again. We know names, locations, and motivations. The heart rate has come down from, 150 to a manageable 90.
A huge victory.
It is. But you can't stay in the shallow end of the pool forever. Eventually, you have to actually discuss something.
Right. If you just keep asking where you from for 20 minutes, it starts to feel less like a conversation and more like an interrogation.
Yeah, that would get awkward fast. So the guide moves us to segment 2, lifestyle and favorites. Now, you called this a grammar hack in our pre-show notes. What makes talking about pizza a grammar hack?
It's all about the verb structures that deal with preference. In Spanish, this is the realm of verbs like gustar and preferir. And for English speakers learning Spanish, the verb gustar is a classic nightmare to understand theoretically.
Oh, I know this one. Me gusta la pizza. It's not, I like pizza, right? It's like, pizza is pleasing to me, or something weird like that.
Technically, yes. The subject of the sentence is the pizza. The pizza is doing the action of being pleasing to you. And that is a backward mental somersault for a native English speaker. It's very confusing.
Very.
However, And this is the hack. Once you lock that structure in your brain, me gusta X, me gusta Y, you can just swap out the nouns. You don't have to conjugate the verb differently for every single item, unless it's plural. This allows you to enter a state of flow. You're not stopping to conjugate a new verb for every sentence. You're just pulling from your vocabulary of nouns.
So you're saying it reduces the cognitive load again because the sentence frame, the structure stays static.
Exactly. You are just slotting in variables. Me gusta el café, me gusta bailar, me gusta la música rock, me gusta dormir. You can speak in whole paragraphs because the connector, me gusta, is always the same.
You're not worrying about, I went, I will go, I would have gone.
None of that. You are just listing things that make you happy, which is a pretty nice way to have a conversation.
It is. So let's look at the topics here. Topic A is the universal language, food and drink.
You cannot go wrong with food. You just can't. Everyone eats. It's the lowest common denominator of human existence.
And the prompt here is, what is a traditional dish from your country? ¿Cuál es un plato tradicional de tu país? That feels like a great entry point.
It's perfect. It's an invitation to share a piece of your culture.
And then this next one is my favorite because it's so simple, but it almost always starts a friendly fight. Do you prefer sweet or salty snacks? ¿Prefieres los bocadillos dulces o salados?
That binary choice, sweet or salty, is an absolute gift to the beginner. In instructional design, we call this a forced choice. Open-ended questions are terrifying for a learner. If I ask you, what is your food philosophy? You will freeze. It's too big.
Total blank, yeah.
But if I ask, sweet or salty, I have given you the answer key.
Yeah.
The answers are in the question. You just have to circle A or B.
It just lowers the barrier to entry so much. I don't have to invent a concept from scratch. I just have to make a selection.
And it creates immediate and effortless follow-up potential. If you say salty, I can immediately ask, like what? Or in Spanish, como que?
Right.
And now you are listing things. Chips, nuts, pretzels, popcorn. You are mining your vocabulary for nouns, which are usually easier to remember than abstract verbs.
It's sticky learning too, right? If you realize in that moment you don't know the word for popcorn and your partner tells you it's palomitas, you will remember that word forever.
Absolutely. Because you needed that word to defend your choice, to win the argument.
To prove that salty is superior,
contextual necessity is the best memory aid. You aren't memorizing a list from a book. You are solving a real-time communication problem. It's a completely different kind of learning.
Okay, so from food, we move to hobbies and fun. The prompts are, what do you like to do on weekends? ¿Qué te gusta hacer los fines de semana? And what is your favorite movie or TV show? ¿Cuál es tu película o serie favorita?
This section addresses another huge psychological pain point for beginners, what I call the infantilization effect.
The feeling that you are a toddler.
Yes. The feeling that because you have the vocabulary of a 3-year-old, you must also have the personality of a 3-year-old.
Oh, that's so true. It's deeply frustrating.
You feel boring. You feel less intelligent than you actually are. You want to express nuanced thoughts about politics or art, but all you can say is, the cat is big.
It's so demoralizing. You feel like you're losing your own identity in the conversation.
Exactly. But when you can say, I like science fiction movies, or on weekends I play the guitar, or I like to rock climb, you are reclaiming your adult identity. You are signaling to your partner, hey, I have a complex person with real interests, even if my grammar is simple right now.
That's a really powerful idea. It humanizes the interaction. It reminds them that there is a ghost in the machine, a real person is in here.
There is. And on a practical level, talking about movies and TV shows often leads to cognates, words that are similar in both languages.
Right.
Science fiction is scientia fiction. Drama is drama. Comedy is comedia. You get a lot of free vocabulary words here, which is a huge confidence boost.
And confidence is the fuel that keeps the conversation going.
It's everything.
Okay, so we've eaten, we've watched a movie, we're feeling a little more like ourselves. Now the source suggests we get a little more descriptive. Segment 3 is travel and culture. You mentioned earlier that this section shifts the linguistic focus. We were focused on nouns, but now we're moving to adjectives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Up until this point, we've mostly been naming things. Pizza, movies, tennis. Now we're starting to describe things.
Yeah.
And in Spanish, this is a distinct skill because of adjective placement and agreement. In English, we say the red car. Simple. In Spanish, it's el coche rojo, the car red.
Right, you have to flip it in your head.
You have to flip it, and you have to make sure it matches the gender and number. Rojo, roja, rojos, rojas. So this section quietly forces you to practice that agreement skill without feeling like a boring grammar drill.
You're just describing a place you like, but your brain is secretly doing all this heavy lifting on structure.
Your brain is at the gym, yeah.
So let's look at the this or that scenario they provide here. It's a classic. Do you prefer the beach or the mountains? ¿Prefieres la playa o la montaña?
Classic for a reason.
Why does this work better, do you think, than just asking an open-ended question like, where do you like to travel?
Because it forces a comparison. You have to use comparative language. You can't just say, I like the beach. You're pushed to say, I prefer the beach because it is warmer. I prefer the mountains because they are more quiet.
So you're building a real argument.
You're constructing arguments. You are using because, porque. You are linking ideas together. This is the bridge you have to cross to get from beginner to intermediate.
That's a great distinction, stating facts versus explaining reasons.
It's huge. A beginner states facts. An intermediate speaker explains reasons and connects ideas. This question gently pushes you in that direction.
The next prompts in this section feel like they're about establishing authority. Tell me about your hometown. Cuéntame sobre tu ciudad natal. And what is the best time of year to visit your country? ¿Cuál es la mejor época del año para visitar tu país?
I love these prompts because they completely flip the power dynamic. They turn the learner into the expert.
How so?
Well, if I ask you about your hometown, you are the world's leading authority on your hometown. I can't correct your facts. I can't say, no, the library is on the other street. I can only listen.
That gives you a huge sense of ownership over the content.
Massive. And usually, you have told stories about your hometown before. In your native language, you have the narrative structure in your head already. You just need to map the new words onto it. It's much easier than inventing a story from scratch.
It also taps into that guide persona, doesn't it? We all love to give advice. Oh, you should definitely come in October. Don't come in August. It's way too hot.
Exactly. It makes the conversation feel natural and useful.
Yeah.
You aren't just practicing Spanish for the sake of practicing. You're giving real, valuable travel advice. It feels authentic.
It validates your culture and your background. It says, the place you are from is interesting to me.
And that builds connection, which is the whole point.
Okay, so everything is going great. We're having a wonderful conversation. We are talking about beaches. We are giving expert travel advice. And then catastrophe strikes.
It always does.
Your partner speaks way too fast. Or they use a slang word you've never heard in your life. Or you just, for the life of you, cannot remember how to say train station. The panic sets in. Your brain shuts down.
The effective filter slams shut. The cortisol spikes again. You're back in danger mode.
And the source anticipates this. It has a section literally titled Survival Phrases, the panic section. And I have to say, I appreciate that they didn't call it advanced communication tips or something. They called it what it is, panic.
It's honest. And the goal here is twofold. The goal is something called circumlocution, and maybe more importantly, resilience.
Okay, define those for us in this context.
Circumlocution is the art of talking around a word you don't know. So if you forget the word for umbrella, you learn to say the thing that protects you from the rain. You describe the function instead of naming the object.
You find another way around the obstacle.
Exactly. And resilience, in this context, means the ability to stay in the target language even when things go wrong.
That is the absolute key, isn't it? Because the instinct, the overwhelming urge when you panic is to switch back to English. Just say, sorry, I don't know what you're saying in your native tongue.
Right. And the moment you switch back to English, you break the spell, you break the immersion. It's like falling off a treadmill. You have to stop the whole machine and then go through the painful process of restarting it.
But if you can use one of these survival phrases in Spanish to ask for help,
then you are still playing the game. You haven't quit. You are demonstrating resilience. You're showing your brain and your partner that you can handle difficulty.
So let's look at the toolkit. There are 4 essential phrases here. I want to go through them one by one because they really are lifesavers. The first one is what I call the translator.
How do you say word in English-Spanish? In Spanish, ¿cómo se dice palabra en inglés-español?
This keeps the flow going without breaking immersion. Instead of stopping a conversation, picking up your phone, and looking at Google Translate,
which kills the mood completely.
It does. Instead, you ask your partner. You turn them into the dictionary.
And it's a natural conversation piece. That's interesting. In my town, we call that something else. It can lead to new discussions. It empowers the other person to help you without ending the Spanish portion of the chat.
Okay, the second tool is the reset.
Can you repeat that, please?
¿Puedes repetir eso, por favor?
This is about normalizing the need to hear things twice.
Which is completely normal. Even in our native language, in a loud cafe or on a bad phone line, we ask people to repeat themselves all the time, and we don't think twice about it.
But in a second language, we feel so much shame about it.
We do. We feel like it proves we aren't good enough. This phrase gives you permission to need a second listen. It signals, I'm still here, I'm still trying, just give me one more shot at understanding.
And then the third tool, I feel like this is maybe the most critical one of all, the speed control.
Can you speak more slowly? Puede hablar más despacio. This is the master key for English speakers learning Spanish.
Why specifically for that combination? Because of the technical reality of the languages. Spanish is what linguists call a syllable-timed language. English is a stress-timed language.
Okay, break that down for us. What does that mean for me, the listener?
In a syllable-timed language like Spanish, every syllable gets roughly the same amount of time. They fire out like a machine gun, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta.
Okay.
In a stress-timed language like English, we stretch out the important stressed syllables and we crush the unimportant ones. I want to go to the store. We don't say I want to go to the store. We eat the little words.
Right.
So to an English ear, which is trained to listen for stress, normal conversational Spanish sounds impossibly fast. It feels like a solid wall of sound with no breaks.
So it's not that you don't know the individual words, it's that your brain can't even find the gaps between them to process them.
Exactly. Your auditory processing unit is lagging behind the input speed. Asking them to speak más despacio is the equivalent of asking them to put spaces between the words. It gives your brain a chance to catch up.
That makes so much sense.
It is the single most effective thing you can do to improve your comprehension instantly. And most partners are happy to do it. They just don't realize how fast they're talking because to them, it's normal.
Okay, and finally, the fourth tool in the panic kit, the dictionary.
What does word mean? ¿Qué significa palabra? So if your partner says a word you don't know, you can isolate it.
This allows you to catch the one specific fly in the soup without throwing out the whole bowl of soup.
That's a great way to put it. You pinpoint the one obstacle, you ask for a definition, you remove it, and you keep eating. You keep the conversation moving.
Now, the source suggests something very specific about these four phrases. It says, write these down, not memorize them. Write them down and have them in front of you.
Absolutely. Put them on a Post-it note, stick it to your monitor, tape it to your coffee table. Why? Because when you are in a state of panic, when your heart rate goes up, your memory center literally shuts down.
Fight or flight.
It's pure fight or flight. You will not be able to remember the phrase, how do you say, in the moment you need it most. You need it to be an external resource. You need to be able to just look down and read it.
It acts as an emergency brake. You just pull the lever, the train slows down, and you don't crash and burn.
I love that visual.
Yeah.
It's a cockpit checklist for when the engine stalls.
Okay, so we have the topics to get us started. We have the emergency brake for when we stall. But how do we structure the actual hour-long meeting? Because if I just call you and say, hey, let's chat, it can get messy.
Oh, it will get messy. One
person ends up talking too much, or worse, we end up speaking English the entire time.
That's the most common failure mode. Structure is the friend of fluency. If you just say, let's chat, it can and will go off the rails. You need boundaries.
So this guide has a section called How to Have a Great Exchange, and it lays out some really specific rules of engagement. Rule number 1, the 50-50 rule.
Simple, but absolutely vital. Spend exactly half the time in English and half the time in Spanish.
And the source adds a specific tool here, which I think is key. It says, use a timer.
Yes. It sounds so rigid and unnatural, but it is necessary. It's the only way to guarantee fairness.
Why is that?
Because almost always, one person's language level is stronger than the others. Let's say my English is much better than your Spanish. The conversation will naturally drift toward English.
It's the path of least resistance.
Exactly. The brain hates effort. It wants to slide into the easy language, the one where it doesn't have to work so hard.
And then what happens is I get to practice my English, which I'm already good at, and you don't get to practice your Spanish at all.
Precisely. The exchange becomes unbalanced. And there can be a power dynamic too. English is often viewed as the prestige language in these exchanges, or the lingua franca. The learner of English might be very eager and confident, while the learner of Spanish might be shy.
So the timer acts as a neutral judge.
A completely neutral, unbiased judge. When the alarm on your phone goes off after 30 minutes, you switch. No matter where you are in the conversation, no discussion. It ensures equity.
I like that. It takes the politeness and the awkwardness out of it. You don't have to interrupt and say, excuse me, can we maybe speak Spanish now? The machine does it for you.
It protects the relationship and ensures both parties get what they came for.
Okay, the next point is less of a rule and more of a mindset shift. The source says, accept mistakes.
This is the core philosophy of the whole endeavor. And they have a great line. Mistakes are proof that you are trying.
That's a great reframe.
We need to deprogram ourselves.
Yeah.
In school, a mistake is a sin. A mistake gets a red mark next to it. A mistake means you get an F. In real-world language acquisition, a mistake is just data.
I love that. A mistake is data. Explain that more.
Well, there's a concept in linguistics called interlanguage. It's the unique hybrid language system you create in your head while you are learning. It's not quite English, and it's not quite Spanish. It's its own thing with its own rules.
Okay.
When you make a mistake, you are testing the boundaries of your interlanguage. For example, if you say, I go to the store in English, that is a brilliant mistake.
How is that brilliant? It's just wrong.
It's brilliant because it shows you understand the general rule for the past tense, which is to add ate. You just applied that general rule to an irregular verb. The mistake proves you are learning the system, even if you got the specific instance wrong. It's useful data.
So it shows progress, not failure.
Exactly. And this leads to the most vital distinction the source makes. Don't aim for perfection, aim for communication.
That is the golden rule right there.
It has to be. Perfection is a barrier to entry. It's an impossible standard. If you wait until you can say the sentence perfectly in your head, you will never actually say the sentence out loud.
You'll be silent forever.
Forever. But communication is messy. It's pointing at things. It's using a wrong verb tense. It's smiling and nodding when you're not totally sure.
Yeah.
But if the other person understood your core message, if you asked for water and you got a glass of water, you won.
That's success.
That is 100% success. Language is just a tool for transferring an idea from my brain to yours. If the transfer happens, the syntax you used is secondary.
It's incredibly freeing to think about it that way. The goal isn't to sound like a news anchor. The goal is just to be understood.
Right. And finally, there is a retention strategy. Because you're having this great conversation, new words are flying by. How do you possibly remember any of it afterward?
The source says, write it down, but it gives a very specific and I think very smart constraint. Keep a notebook nearby to jot down 3 new words from every session. Only 3.
Just 3. This combines the principle of spaced repetition with managing cognitive load. If you try to write down every single correction your partner gives you, you aren't listening anymore. You're not in the conversation.
You're taking dictation. You're a court stenographer.
Exactly. And if you end the hour with a list of 50 new words, be honest with yourself. Are you actually going to sit down and study that list?
Never. I'm going to close the notebook, feel overwhelmed and guilty about it later, and never look at it again.
Of course not. It becomes a chore. But 3 words. You can memorize 3 words. You can stick 3 words on your fridge with a magnet. You can put 3 words into a flashcard app like Anki or Quizlet. It is actionable.
And you picked the ones that were most important.
You picked the 3 words that you really needed during that conversation, the words that blocked you, the word for train station that you couldn't remember. Fixing those 3 specific potholes makes the road much smoother for your next trip.
I really like the manageability of that. It feels like something a person could actually do consistently. It's about sustainable growth, not a one-time cram session.
Small wins, compound interest. That's what actually builds fluency over time.
Now, before we wrap this all up, we should just briefly mention the context of this source again. It comes from Se Habla, which is described as a global community gathering for this exact purpose.
Right. And knowing that is important because it reminds you, the listener, you are not alone in this. And that is the perfect antidote to the loneliness of the long-distance learner.
Yeah, it can be very lonely.
It can be incredibly isolating. You are sitting in your room talking to an app. You feel like you are the only person in the entire world who can't roll their R's correctly.
I've been there.
We all have. But when you join a community, whether it's Se Habla online or a local meetup group in your city, you realize there's an entire ecosystem of people just like you. There are people with 5 years of experience who still make basic mistakes. There are total beginners who are just as scared as you are.
It normalizes the struggle.
Completely. You don't have to invent the wheel, you just have to join the circle.
That's a very comforting thought. You aren't crazy, you're just learning a new skill, and it's hard.
It's hard for everyone.
So let's synthesize what we've learned today. It's a real journey. We've gone from the abject terror of the leap of faith to a structured, manageable plan.
A roadmap.
Exactly. We use the script, name, place, motivation to survive the first 5 minutes and ground ourselves in the simple present tense.
Then we use lifestyle and favorites, as a grammar hack for the verb gustar, letting us build flow by just listing things we like.
We use travel and culture to start practicing adjectives and building simple arguments, moving from stating facts to explaining reasons.
And we keep our 4 panic phrases taped to the monitor so we can stay in Spanish when the road gets bumpy, which it always will.
And for the structure, we use the timer to force the 50-50 language split. We accept our mistakes as valuable data, and we only write down 3 new words.
It's a complete framework. And what it does, fundamentally, is it removes the cognitive load of having to worry about what do I say next. So you can focus all your mental energy on the actual language itself. It takes the mystery out of the exchange.
It really does. It turns a terrifying, unclimbable mountain into a simple set of stairs. So as we close out this deep dive, I want to turn it back to you for our final thought. We've talked a lot about mechanics, timers, scripts, verbs. But is there something deeper here about what makes a good language exchange partner?
You know, I've been thinking about that rule we discussed. Aim for communication, not perfection. And it raises a provocative question for me about how we listen to other people, not just in language learning, but in life.
Okay.
We often think a good language partner is someone who is a strict teacher, someone who corrects every single mistake we make. We want them to fix our grammar constantly.
Sure, that makes sense. We want to learn. We think correction equals progress.
But if the goal is communication, if the goal is connection, at what point does constant correcting actually hinder the connection you're trying to build? Imagine you were telling me a heartfelt story about your childhood. You were being emotional. You were being vulnerable. And I stopped you mid-sentence to correct your article usage. No, it's el problema, not la problema.
Right.
I fixed your grammar, yes. But I have completely crushed your spirit. I have killed the story. I have signaled that I care more about the code than about the message.
That's so true. In that moment, you stop being a friend and you start being an editor.
So perhaps the best language exchange partners aren't the strictest teachers. Perhaps the best partners are the ones who have the wisdom to know when to let the small mistakes slide in favor of hearing the bigger story. Something to think about the next time you're in an exchange. Are you listening for the errors, or are you listening for the person?
That is a fantastic place to leave it, listening for the person, not just the preposition. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. If you've been hesitating to book that first conversation, go do it today. Make a mistake. It's good for you.
Buena suerte.
See you next time.